ironic because I just said before how Stephen Miller also said, he's using terminology that demonizes protesters. And it's funny, I can't find this clip online anymore. It's been taken down, but thank you to my podcast, I can pull it right back up. So let's go ahead and go into this real quick because Stephen Miller also is trying to remove the freedom of speech and destroy the act of freedom of speech from our constitutional rights. So go ahead, let's hit play on this.
Have had to
Here we go.
the idea how many resources we have had to redesignate to deal with these street terrorists.
You explain that. Let me ask the question.
Let me play that again.
To deal with these street terrorists.
Let me play that again.
Designate to deal with these street terrorists.
Street terrorist. This is people who are currently sitting in our government calling protesters who have the constitutional right to protest street terrorists and we hate America rallies. Come on. This is ridiculous at this point. We already know the MO of this government. The MO is to silence dissent, to destroy credibility, to destroy any sort of complete, I would say, what's the word I'm looking for? The word just went out of my mind. To destroy any sort of rebellion against this government. And it's an atrocity at this point. What this government is doing is trying to rework the United States into a world where we are cash cows. We are no longer individuals. We work for the government, we thrive for the government, and we report to the government. So that is basically the MO of this government. And I wanted to go ahead and loop this in here because this is also very scary because they're again trying to normalize the militarization of the army and our troops in our streets. We see it in Chicago. We see it in Chicago. We see it in Portland. We saw it in California, where the judge then ruled that deploying National Guard into California was unlawful, and yet they're still trying to do it in other cities throughout the states, thinking they're going to get a different result from courts that keep blocking them from sending troops into cities to harm American citizens. So, again, we just have a complete bullshit show of what is going on in our government. But here you can hear him say and try and justify throwing military in our streets to normalize it. So let's go ahead and hit play.
He also says that you are profiling, that you're targeting black and brown people, even those who turn out to be here legally. What's your response?
Well, first of all, the black people in Chicago are thrilled that we're getting the illegal aliens out of their communities who are stealing their housing, jobs, and resources.
Another talking point. Black people are happy about getting illegal aliens out of their communities for stealing their jobs and resources. Another MAGA talking point, which is untrue.
The illegal aliens who are here are taking jobs away from blacks. They're taking jobs away from whites. They're taking jobs away from Latinos. We cannot have a system of law in this country that privileges illegal aliens over American citizens.
And I want to make this very clear. Our laws do not privilege illegal aliens, or as they should be called, immigrants, over American citizens. They don't have the same rights as us. Yes, they are afforded due process and things of that nature, but when it comes to healthcare, illegal immigrants that are here illegally aren't even eligible for healthcare when it comes to Medicaid and Medicare. So the talking points that Stephen Miller and Mike Johnson continue to dole out and spit out through their assholes is that America prioritizes immigrants, but that's never been the case. We've welcomed immigrants. We've said, here's a platform for you to start a life, but we've never prioritized immigrants. It's the bold-faced lies for me. But let's continue on with this because this goes into a little bit of a debate on CNN.
I love the idea that Stephen Miller has a pipeline to the black community in Chicago and knows what black people in Chicago are thinking. I kind of doubt that's the case.
But he does understand the politics of division.
Well,
He
absolutely.
understands that very well.
You know, it is true that the mayor of Chicago is not allowed to obstruct the work of ICE. And I think some of what he said comes very close to obstructing that. And that's just simply not the law. He's right that people inside buildings can demand a warrant from ICE if they can, and they're not obliged to let them in. But it is also true that you know, you can call yourself a sanctuary city or whatever you want, but under the law, a locality is not allowed to interfere with the work of ICE.
And this is true. This is true if it's done in the proper legal process, which Trump and his own personal militia in ICE is not doing. So let's be 100% clear about what is currently going on here. Trump is using military force in ICE to intrude and invade United States cities and attack their public citizens who are American. That is what's happening right now. And he's right. Technically, local law enforcement cannot impede on ICE doing their raids and their detainees. They can't. Under law, under the hierarchy of law and the hierarchy of enforcement, no, they can't. They're not allowed to. But because what Trump is doing with his own personal militia right now is violating laws, then technically the states don't have to follow the hierarchy of law. Now, I want to point out what this man is saying right here. So I want to pull this up right now. So what he is referring to and what Stephen Miller was referring to in regards to the use of military force in our cities is Title 10 of the U.S. Code, Section 252. And this basically states that the president has the right to release military forces in U.S. cities to deter, detain, or control an outbreak of a rebellion, which is true. And this is why Stephen Miller, Mike Johnson, Donald Trump himself continue the rhetoric to demonize and then inflate the flames that currently aren't even there, because they want to try and militarize the cities of the United States, mostly the democratic cities of the United States. I mean, we're going into the election periods of the midterms, and why not have police force normalized to instill fear for voting? That's the goal here. So it's 100% true. The president does have the right to militarize in U.S. cities if needed, because there's a rebellion going on. But let's talk about Title 10, because Stephen Miller perverts it. He manipulates it, and he misses vital steps that the president would need to take to get approval for the militarization of, say, ICE in our cities. So, whenever the president considers that unlawful obstructions combinations or assemblages or rebellion against the authority of the United States make it impracticable to enforce the laws of the United States in any state by the ordinary cause of judicial proceedings, he may call into federal service such as a militia of any state and use such of the armed forces as he considers necessary to enforce those laws to suppress the rebellion. So yes, under Title 10, the president does have the right to militarize in United States cities. It's true. But what we're missing here, and what the Trump administration is missing here, is that they need to go through judicial proceedings. And they're not going through judicial proceedings, which means they're violating Title 10 of the United States Code. And then also, Stephen Miller is sitting here saying they're violating Title 10 of the United States Code because the code clearly states you need judicial proceedings and you need approval for these acts. And they're not getting these approvals before they go into these cities, because these cities aren't burning down like Donald Trump is claiming. These cities aren't attacking ICE agents like Stephen Miller is claiming. These protests aren't We Hate America rallies like Mike Johnson is saying. These are untrue statements to inflate and conflate so that way they can militarize U.S. forces into our cities. It is a complete deception and a plan to militarize our cities to enforce martial law. So the lying needs to stop from these scummy, disgusting human beings who are currently running our country. And they need to follow the law. And they're not following the law. That's why Donald Trump's National Guard in California got sent out of California, because it was found to be unconstitutional. It was found to be illegal. And what's new when Trump is saying that something is illegal that he does because he's a 34 convicted count felon?